power of Germany on January 1933. The Nazis believed that the Jews were Germany's problem. Hitler believed that if he got rid of all Jews, Germany would once again thrive. So because of this, on January 33, the Holocaust began. By 1945, Hitler and his followers were killing 2 out of every 3 Jews. The handicapped were on the top of the list. Hitler believed that the handicapped were useless. So about 200,000 mentally or physically disabled Jews were murdered. Cattle cars, freight cars, and passenger trains were used to transport people to the Nazi concentration camps. 30 or 40 people could comfortably fit into the cars, but the Nazis squeezed in people so that the total people in the cars were about 70 or 80. The Nazis treated the imprisoned people more like animals instead of human beings. The ride would last days, and the little food or water that they got was eaten all by the people closest to the door. So the people in the back would generally starve to death.
Auschwitz was the largest camp established by the Germans. The 4 largest gas chambers could each hold 2,000 people at one time. A sign over the entrance to the camp read, "Work makes one free." In actuality, the opposite was true. Labor became another form of genocide that the Nazis called extermination through work. Victims were spared immediate death by being selected for labor, were stripped of their individual identity. They had their hair shaved off and a registration number tattooed on their left forearm. Men were forced to wear rags, striped pants, and jackets, and women wore work dresses. Both were issued ill-fitting work shoes, sometimes clogs. They had no change of clothing and slept in the same clothes they worked in. Each day was a struggle for survival under unbearable conditions. Prisoners were housed in brackets that had no windows and were not isolated from the heat or cold. There was no bathroom, only a bucket. Each bracket had about 36 wooden bunk beds, and inmates were squeezed into 5 or 6 across the wooden blanket. As many as 500 inmates logged in a single bracket. Inmates were always hungry. Food consisted of watery soup made with rotten vegetables and meat, and a few ounces of bread and a bit of tea, or a bitter drink resembling coffee. Diarrhea was common. People weakened by dehydration and hunger fell easy victim to the contagious diseases that spread to the camp. Escape from Auschwitz was almost impossible. Electrically charged barbed wires that surrounded both the concentration camp and the killing centers. Guards equipped with machine guns and automatic rifles stood in the many watchtowers. The lives of the prisoners were completely controlled by their guards, who on a whim could inflict cruel punishment on them. Prisoners were also mistreated by fellow inmates, who were chosen to supervise the others in return for special favors by the guards. Cruel medical experiments were conducted at Auschwitz. Men, women, and children were used as subjects. SS physician Dr. Joseph Mengele carried out painful experiments on dwarfs, twins, and including young children. The aim for some experiments was to find a better medical treatment for German soldiers and airmen. Most prisoners at Auschwitz survived only a few weeks or months. Those who were too ill or too weak to work were condemned to death in the gas chambers. Some committed suicide by throwing themselves against the electric wires. Procedures to the gas chambers. When Jews were being sent to gas chambers, they were told they were going to take showers. The Jews were ushered into a room and were told to remove all their clothing. Jews were then ushered into a large room that looked like a shower room. There were even fake shower heads on the walls. When the door shut, a Nazi would pour Nexum P tablets into an opening in the roof or through a window, which would turn into poison gas once it contracted air. The gas killed quickly, but it was unstainlessly. Victims, finally realizing that this was not a shower room, climbed over each other, trying to find a pocket of breathable air. Others would claw at the doors until their fingers bled. Once everyone in the room was dead, special prisoners assigned this horrible task would air out the room and then remove the bodies. Each of these gas chambers could murder about 6,000 people a day.
In the final months of the war, SS guards moved camp inmates by train or on forced marches, often called death marches, in an attempt to prevent the Allied liberation of large numbers of prisoners. As Allied forces moved across Europe in a series of offensives against Germany, they began to encounter and liberate concentration camp prisoners, as well as prisoners en route by forced march from one camp to another. The marches continued until May 7, 1945, the day the German armed forces surrendered unconditionally to the Allies. For the Western Allies, World War II officially ended in Europe on the next day, May 8th, while Soviet forces announced the Victory Day on May 9, 1945.